Alright, let's get straight to the point. While I could spend a lot of time praising Helldivers 2, its excellent gameplay, satisfying shooting mechanics, diverse factions, biomes, and stratagems, not to mention its humor and satire, that's not the focus of this video. My goal here is to discuss the problems I see in the current version of the game and suggest potential improvements. I'll also share some personal desires, partially drawing from my experience with the first game. Credits can be found in the description of the video. Let's kick things off with an issue not often discussed: weak enemies. While most of the basic cannon fodder or heavy units in Helldivers 2 are engaging to fight, some feel a bit out of place. Take the automaton tanks, for example. The shredder tank at least can kill you, sometimes. But the annihilator and barrager tanks seem to have drawn the short straw. Though heavily armored and armed, they are far less problematic than hulks. In the first game, Cyborg IFVs were genuinely threatening. While I understand the two games are as different as COD World at War and COD Vanguard, and we can't simply make tanks as powerful as those IFVs, that's a terrible idea. We can make them more aggressive. Increased urge to squash and faster turret rotation speeds would make them feel like proper tanks. The barrager tank is more complicated. Making it fire from long range would be annoying, and firing close range would be even more annoying. Perhaps it could function as artillery, with another automaton unit targeting you, and the barrager tank firing at the marked target. However, that's a difficult mechanic to implement well, so let's move on. Shifting our focus to the Terminids, the Impaler, for instance, was one of the most terrifying enemies in the first game. But now I can't recall the last time I died to one. And while it's not good as an enemy these days, it's still better than what was originally added with Escalation of Freedom update, so let's not repeat that situation. My solution is that Impaler won't kill or ragdoll you, but will stun you like a tremor effect. And don't forget that the developers have stated it's meant to disrupt escapes, but that doesn't seem to work. So, making them effectively hold your escape would be a good thing if that is what the developers had planned. The Behemoth Charger is another example. While it's more heavily armored than the normal Charger, the difference isn't significant enough. Like the normal Charger, it still dies to one shot from a recoilless rifle or thermite grenade. But unlike the Spore Charger that changes gameplay by obscuring your vision, the Behemoth Charger offers no similar unique impact. So why not make a tankier version of the tank without an easily accessible weak point, or place it in a way that's hard to reach, and, of course, to also increase its HP? Arrowhead consistently aims to introduce new content to Helldivers 2. The addition of sub-factions like the Incineration Core or Predator's Strain enhances gameplay variety. Both of these alter your combat approach and the equipment you might want to take. However, we have examples that fall short in that regard: the Jet Brigade and the Spore Burst Strain. Let's take a look at the Jet Brigade. Originally, I wanted to say that the Jet Brigade has nothing new in it, that a whole sub-faction is just one new unit. But now, it's a bit of a different problem. This new sub-faction, thanks to their jetpacks, is not only weaker in terms of weak points, but also way more predictable in behavior than usual bots. What about gloom bugs? The whole thing is a small explosion. This reminds me of Volatile Guts in Deep Rock Galactic, but that's a personal thought. And the point of that explosion is you can't use a melee weapon? Maybe? I can't even tell what exact gameplay change occurred when I fought them. It felt like the same mission, just with a yellow filter thanks to the gloom. I understand they're important for lore reasons, and it's great that the developers included that, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, under the expectation of new content, we essentially got a normal mission with additional side objectives. So, what's the problem and how do we fix it? The issue is there is nothing new from a gameplay perspective. It's the same missions, just with a sub-faction icon near the planet. Let's use the Jet Brigade as an example. In my opinion, the main problem, as stated before, is that they are weaker than regular bots, thanks to new weak points. And also, thanks to their AI, you can still run away from them, unlike Incendiary Core. And running away from problems is the default solution for most automaton missions. And to fix that problem, with weak points, it's not so hard. A little tweaking of weak point armor values and HP can do the trick. But what about running away? Well, what if all melee units still jumped at you, but let's say more of the ranged ones, not that one, jumped not directly at you, but around you, or in the direction that you're trying to escape to, or if they tried to surround you. In this way, they would directly challenge one of the fundamental aspects of just running away from the problem, making movement a lot more difficult. This would make them distinct from the baseline automatons or the incineration core that heat up close to mid-range engagements. Who's a smart guy? I'm a smart guy. Right? Right? But in all seriousness, creating a truly distinct sub-faction isn't easy, which is why Arrowhead is slow to add them. It's not just about throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks, but about making all parts of the final design work in synergy from the very beginning. We can, however, draw inspiration from successfully implemented distinct sub-factions in other games. I know that sounds stupid, but hear me out. Directly copying someone else's work is bad, but taking inspiration from other sources is good. We can't just copy something one-to-one from an old forgotten mod for a 20-year-old game, as a direct copy simply won't work in HD2. However, drawing inspiration from how gameplay and game flow change due to small alterations in conditions is a good idea, and how different sub-factions are made can be a good source of ideas. Think about strategy games, like Command & Conquer 3 Kane's Wrath. That game did a good enough job with its sub-factions. Let's look at the basic Brotherhood of Nod faction and its sub-faction, the Black Hand. The base Nod faction focuses on an approach of stealth, speed, and sometimes raw power, often relying on hit-and-run tactics. But then there is the Black Hand. This sub-faction doubles down on raw firepower. For example, their flame tanks are significantly more powerful because they're built as veteran, and they gain access to upgrades like Purifying Flame, dealing immense damage. How does this change affect the gameplay? Well, you gain incredible close-range offensive power, but at a significant cost. The Black Hand completely loses access to stealth and all air units. It's a double-edged sword where you're strong in one area, but you've willingly given up key tactical options in others. Do we need the exact same mechanic for automatons? No. Can we take inspiration from it and make it work? Yes. Let's say an automaton sub-faction won't have any tanks or even hulks, instead relying on heavy gunships and fast-attack aircraft. This will create conditions where tools like the Wasp and Spear will be effective against gunships. And if we look at aircraft, to make them fun, we can make a specialized automaton unit target you, so they will be a flying headache for you until you kill the spotter. This will create conditions where change in units will push change in equipment and encounters, and that will push change in gameplay and strategy. Is this a perfect suggestion? No. Is this a better way to make a sub-faction? Yes. I know that taking inspiration that much is odd, but don't forget, developers are already taking inspiration from other games. I understand that Arrowhead is a smaller studio with around 160 people. Adding 3 to 5 new units to existing content shouldn't be an impossible task. Making them fun and distinct from existing content is the real challenge. Of course, this is all theoretical. I have no idea how hard it is to work with the HD2 engine or how much time in the development cycle it takes for Arrowhead to add a new enemy sub-faction. But what good reason is there for an enemy to exist if it cannot be killed? Hello and welcome to Bad Weapon Academy. Today, we'll take a look at... That's not a spear, that's a javelin. Can we roll the intro? I know a lot of people have spoken about it, but I think I need to say it. The spear is in a very strange position. It has 1+3 shots, and while the projectile theoretically should deal good damage, there is a significant but. It has a chance that it will miss or hit an unintended part of the target. And if that happens, it forces you to use another shot and lose half of your entire ammo supply. The worst part is you can only take 3 rockets from a resupply, and if you need to fully reload, you will run with 25% of total ammo missing. In comparison, a recoilless, Wasp, and airburst rocket launcher have 5+1 shots, and if the same thing happened to these stratagems, they would still have full 5 shots remaining. Compare this to the 3 of the spear. So, compared to the GR8 recoilless rifle, the spear has less ammunition, cannot be used at close range, and its guided nature can lead to expensive shots being wasted. And fixing it, theoretically, is not that hard. Just adding 1 rocket and making it lock a bit faster will make using the spear much better. Or we can make it a really good tool for mission completion, like making it lock and destroy enemy buildings like jammers or detector towers from a long range. And another bad weapon is the arc thrower. This weapon has the problem that it doesn't solve any specific problems. Its damage is low and its stun effect isn't significant enough to be a key factor. And the accompanying gameplay of press M1 release repeat is not so interesting. Compared to any other weapon, it feels pointless. Remember, stun doesn't kill enemies, so why would you need to take something that does not kill them when you can take almost anything else to fix the problem? And we already have stratagems with auto-aim or infinite ammo, so why not buff some of its parameters to make it a better weapon? Same problem here. While Dog Breath is a good thing that does not take your support weapon slot and helps with crowd control, the Sterilizer is just a worse version of the Flamethrower. With 10 times worse DPS and leaning into support, unlike the Flamethrower, the Sterilizer is just the worst option to melt down the swarm at your position. And unlike Dog Breath, it takes your support weapon slot, so while we can say it's okay, it could be made to work as a support weapon by making gas reduce the armor of enemies. Yes, this will apply to gas in general as well, and making the DPS of the Sterilizer be half of the Flamethrowers. They will be 2 different weapons. The Flamethrower to kill, but have a chance that the enemy will reach you, and the Sterilizer to stun and kill them way slower and potentially get you flanked. Well, this is a bit complicated. In the game, there are 2 current ways to stun enemies, EMS and gas. So why not a distinct theme? Let's make gas be the crowd control and EMS be the heavy stopper. What I mean by that is EMS would be the anti-heavy unit choice against targets like Bile Titans and Factory Striders. It wouldn't damage them but would turn them off so you could easily kill them, while gas would damage heavy units and reduce their armor but would take time to confuse them, while medium and light enemies would get confused almost instantly. So we would have 2 different roles for 2 different effects. I'll say it short. The problem is its role in combat and the explanation of how to use it. Taking a backpack and a support weapon for any patrol or enemy wave is too much for most people. So, this weapon needs a little rework or a better explanation. And let's move on to a more annoying problem for me. Some weapons feel like direct downgrades or simply less interesting versions of others. For example, the R2124 Constitution and R6 Deadeye. R6 is far better than R2124 by all measures, which is odd. In the first game, it was an amazing and unique weapon. I know I've already said that comparing the first game to the second one is not the best idea, but still, we can take good ideas from the first one, and in it, it was a monster of a weapon. So perhaps a little more damage combined with AP4 would work. But hey, wouldn't it kill the R6? Good question. No, because the power of the Constitution would cost you a scope and a slightly longer reload. That would make it a choice between comfort and power, and that, at least in my opinion, is more interesting. Another good example of this is the Punisher family. Sorry that our Bad Weapon Academy failed, but I've got a better show for you. Today our guests are the gun that changes how you play the game and has unique shooting mechanics. Say hello to the Plasma Punisher. The gun that's a Punisher but with better staggering and which sets things on fire. Say hello to Cockout. And the final one. How did it get here? Then there are weapons that aren't inherently bad but are overshadowed by more interesting or versatile alternatives. The SG-8 Punisher, for instance, is just a shotgun, while other options are way more interesting in damage, gameplay, or both. And while we are talking about balance, let's remember our boosters. I know some people talked about it, but I will try to say something new. While there are a few that are part of the meta, we have a ton of them that are odd. Starting with Firebomb, Hell Pods, and Stun Pods, both of these boosters don't have any good use in battle. While they're good enough to kill or stun enemies when a Hell Pod is landing, be it a turret or your teammate, they cause a lot of headaches when you're trying to land near your teammate, call a resupply, a support weapon, or even objective-related equipment. So while technically it's supposed to be a booster to change how you play the game, making landing in groups of enemies a viable option, its downsides make using these boosters mostly a problem for you rather than your enemies. To fix this problem, it would be interesting to make this effect not apply to you, but that would be illogical in the context of HD2. So why not activate this effect only when an enemy is around? It won't dramatically change the theme of the booster or how it's used, but it will make using this booster a better experience. Continuing with the Expert Extraction Pilot, while on paper its effect of cutting down 30% of the extraction time sounds good, in reality it's not so great. Why? Ah yes, we've had a 38-minute mission, and now, because we're using this booster, we can finally extract in time. Moments when you play and think, damn, it's so sad I didn't bring Expert Extraction Pilot, are almost non-existent. So why wouldn't it instead make extraction instant, like in Evacuate high-value assets? While it won't be a booster that helps you in a fight, an instant extraction will be a nice bonus, especially when there are debuffs on extraction, like when we were defending Super Earth. And let me have a not-so-hot take. Dead Sprint is a bad booster. I know I'm very original. The whole concept of this booster, to make an expensive resource, your HP, become something that is used as stamina, which can be restored by just not running, is not great. It's only good to grief players, so while keeping its idea, let's make it work so that while taking a hit, the player gets a speed boost, and won't use stamina for the next 5 seconds, so it will now work as help for you to run away from problems. Moving on to the UAV Recon booster. The whole booster can be replaced with one upgrade to your Super Destroyer. For now, it's commonly used to farm super credits on level 1 missions. So let's make this booster a good farming tool, but let's shift its focus from super credits to samples. How? Let's make it show samples on the map, like in the first game, by having small icons within the radar radius. So if players want to grind for samples, they can use multiple boosters like Sample Scanner and Sample Extricator with it. With some interesting ones out of the way, the Motivational Shocks booster doesn't even look interesting compared to others. While it's supposed to help you with stuns, it's rare to have any sort of problems with stunning in missions. And less importantly, this booster makes enemies recover from stun faster, so it not only doesn't provide any meaningful impact, but actively harms you. So let's make a small change to make stun effects not apply to Helldivers or to affect them way less than enemies. So this will make it useful and add incentive to use more stun stratagems like the EMS Mortar Sentry, Orbital EMS Strike, or De-Escalator. I can say way more, starting with laser weapon problems, grenade issues, smoke, and ending with do we need stratagems limited to 1 per mission? Arrowhead, if you want, I can make a presentation for you explaining the problems. If you want, you can find my email here. But instead, I will open a can of worms that I don't see people willing to engage with very often. I know weapon rebalancing can be a very sensitive topic for some players. You hear that groan of, "Oh no, developers nerfed that weapon again, game bad." And I can understand that sentiment, especially given some less than smart nerfs we saw more than a year ago. But honestly, most of the balance changes recently have been good. Even going back to the Breaker Incendiaries magazine reduction in August 2024, people cried a lot. But in fact, this change was needed. The current balance is solid, but small continuous changes can transform repetitive meta gameplay into a river of new possibilities. Tweaks to how plasma weapons function, or adjustments to shotgun spread, for instance, would create interesting new gameplay options for both new and veteran Helldivers. Speaking on the topic of interesting gameplay, let's go to the realm of misunderstanding and waiting for something. Let's talk about major orders. What I've observed is that people often don't feel connected to them or understand what will happen after a major order concludes. Remember the DSS construction? Many people were bored by it. And after 3 or 4 of them calling it another filler MO, it was clear that there was a lack of player connection. I believe the problem was that people didn't know the conditions, like needing to win an X number of MOs to succeed or losing the DSS if a specific number of them is failed. I understand why this is done this way. It offers developers flexibility, allowing them to easily fix things if something goes wrong. But at the same time, when all this happened, it felt like an endless grind without an end, because we didn't know when it would end. In the best case scenario, it would be beneficial to know what, where, and when. For example, an explanation along the lines of, "Hey Helldivers, we have to fight bugs now, and if we lose this ground, it's not good, but totally we won't be shot in the leg after they find our secret material lab here, and totally they won't mutate, becoming even stronger, so have fun." This way, people would understand that if we fail another filler MO, we'll face the consequences, which will lead us to worse gameplay conditions for the next MO, and so on. But since that might not be possible because developers will want wiggle room for oh shit scenarios, another solution is timed events tied to MOs. For example, "Hey Helldiver, we got too much E710, and because of this we want to test a modification to our laser guns, so they dish out 3 times more damage but overheat 1.7 times faster, and we'll test it only for this and maybe next MO, so do not miss this opportunity." It wouldn't be a game changer, but it would be a compensation for uninteresting MOs that don't bring anything new to the game or lore. This brings us to another critical area: communication. Let's discuss developer-to-community communication. I acknowledge that things are improving. Developers are listening to the community and adopting some ideas, and we've even had a new stream from Arrowhead. However, we still don't hear from them often. We lack a roadmap, and we don't even know how new content will be handled, which is problematic. Why? Let's recall the DSS situation. Many people expected it to be a clan station because it was named clan station in the files. Arrowhead didn't do anything wrong, but due to the silence, that was the only source of information. And the orbital bombardment modifier, everyone who played with it understood it was a bad idea. Yet somehow Arrowhead decided to deploy it. This is more a question for the QA team than Arrowhead, but it was still bad. And yes, it was fixed. But unlike a warband, which offers a good surprise, an orbital station fundamentally changes how the game is supposed to be played. In that case, communication and explanation of how it would work and can be used, and feedback before it caused damage were all things that should have happened. Again, I'll repeat, not all new content is supposed to be leaked. And QA is supposed to inform Arrowhead of all problems in new content before they become annoying. But at the same time, if the community knew that we would have X and Y and could say X is good, Y needs to be changed, it would prevent the DSS situation from repeating itself and make the game feel more connected to everyone. And this problem extends to game knowledge. Need an example? What about localization confusion booster? Literally no one is 100% sure how this thing works. While the game has a ton of mechanics to play with, there is no way a new player, or even an old one, can know about them. I'm not talking about shoot in the head with light armor-piercing weapons to kill faster, or simple things like changing weapon fire mode or RPM by holding R. I'm talking about things like being able to fire backward, durable damage, mission completion increasing enemy patrol count by 3 times, or how stratagem calls can cause enemy patrols to change their movement direction, and many more. And what's most amusing, with the recent addition of megacities, I didn't understand why it's taken so long to liberate planets, until I went to a companion app and saw that planets have 2.5 times more HP than normal. And we don't have any of that information in-game, including the HP of megacities, which would help to rewire our brains to new conditions. And let's not forget, in my opinion, the biggest flaw that shows this problem. The fact that bullets go out of the barrel and not the scope. While it's not a huge flaw on paper, in fact, it perfectly shows the problem. People just didn't know that bullets come from the barrel in this game. And that fact was not mentioned anywhere. So people reported this as a bug. It was a small and cool little detail to ground the gameplay, but now it's cut because it was never properly explained. What is odd is that we can see similar problems in a lot of other games. Let's take a look at Escape from Tarkov. We won't go deep into the problems of that game and the controversy that goes with it, but while HD2 and Tarkov are not so similar, both of these games have a lot of unexplained mechanics that are hidden from the naked eye. In Tarkov's case, however, the solution was to rely on helpful players being around. You literally need to go to the forums and ask others for help just to learn how to play the game, and that's not a good solution. In our case, the problem can be simply fixed with the existence of an in-game encyclopedia, more detailed descriptions, and adding the aforementioned info to drop messages. Now, don't get me wrong, the game would still benefit from these tweaks, but in a perfect world with unicorns and rainbows, we would really need a fully fledged advanced tutorial to teach these things to players that already have some experience at it, but are still new to the game. I know, from the lore point of view, it's strange, because Helldivers are glorified cannon fodder, but at least it can be explained as an officer course for those who have survived long enough and have proven their value to the Super Earth or something. But even without it, the problem wouldn't be that bad if that hidden info was merely just mentioned somewhere. And while cases when developers take inspiration from the community are few and far between, the impact that it brings to the game is astonishing. Remember, we didn't have enemy resistance indicators, supply lines shown on the map, levels of enemy attack, and much more, but now we do, in part thanks to the community. But not every idea is feasible. Some, of course, are good and all, and many people would likely find them enjoyable, but there are others that are not so engaging, let's say. Let's start with something simple: guns. While most suggestions in that area are good, we have some bad examples, like the request to add a minigun. Yes, we have a real-life version called a microgun, but it's not that interesting. Instead, a better solution to that problem would be the return of the MGX-42 machine gun. That gun both references the first game and, on its own, is an interesting and rarely used concept that will not break the style or in-game world logic. Let's continue to war bonds. Some are really good and can fit very well, others are not as good. I don't want to oversimplify and put everyone in the same boat, but it looks like a lot of people don't understand the game's style, lore, or both. I know my example won't be perfect, but I'll still try. Let's go back in time and make a war bond based on the last Great War. After all, we already have old armor in the form of the Legionnaire set. More remade or reintroduced equipment from this or an even older era would be interesting to see, and since we'd be referencing something old, we would be able to also expand on the lore. Of course, it would be something satirical, like a pretty mundane thing being transformed into inhuman torture, with the inhuman torture part being hidden between the lines. And let's not forget game mechanics. While ideas to upgrade or add something are good, not all ideas are good. For example, let's return to the clan station idea. Imagine the conversation that the developers would have to have in order to add it. Okay guys, the community wants this, and so we've decided to add a clan station. After the social menu rework, do we still have problems? Can we add a clan system without destroying friend lists? Oh, fantastic. So we're just going to organically grow the server infrastructure for that, right? How much will that cost, and where will we buy it? And what about the design spec? Naming conventions, griefing prevention, cross-platform clan invites. Is this a few sprints task or a half-year marathon without an end task? And how does this fit the lore? Clans? Ah yes, Helldiver, we just made 10 more DSS out of thin air, took command of them to what? Save the galaxy. Oh, and what about players that do not want to join clans? Will they miss new content, or will clan stations support everyone? How will that work? And when will we add this? We need to finish like 3 more warbonds and then another pack of bugs. The existing framework is held together by duct tape and the sheer will of democracy. When are we gonna finish that? And so on and on and on. I know it's easy to say just add this, fix that, but remember, Arrowhead is a small studio, so let's give them the time they need to make what they want. And while we have good ideas, we need to be more strict about what will fit and what will not. And while we're on the topic of content, let's talk about a rare theme that I didn't see brought up anywhere. Helldivers 2 has blessed us with a remarkably consistent flow of new content since launch, and that's genuinely exciting. New warbonds, fresh stratagems, and intriguing enemies have been introduced. However, this constant churn, while initially good, can eventually lead to significant problems if not carefully managed. I'm talking about content that feels too similar. The danger is that a rapid pace without sufficient novelty can dilute the experience. A new shotgun that just feels like a slight variation, or a mission type that's essentially a reskin of an existing one, quickly diminishes player excitement. We're already seeing the beginnings of repetitive content. Releasing a new warbond every month is arguably more dangerous than players think. Rainbow Six Siege, for example, initially added new maps and 2 entirely new operators that changed gameplay, along with guns that brought something genuinely fresh to the table and altered core game mechanics. Nowadays, they often add only 1 operator with reused guns and a simplified version of the existing game mechanics. Thanks to so much bloat, the game struggles with everything it was once loved for by a lot of people, leading to a lot of problems with balance, decision, and direction. All of this could happen to HD too. While I can understand the difference that Arrowhead is not Ubisoft and Helldivers 2 is not Rainbow Six Siege, the problem is slowly rising. We can already start to see multiple reuses across a number of things, including guns, stratagems, and armor. While it's not bad now, it can grow into a monstrosity that could both overwhelm new players and frustrate the old ones. But this isn't to say reuse is inherently bad, quite the opposite. Smart content reuse can be a powerful tool to diversify the game. Imagine the possibilities, like what we saw with megacity assets being used during the defense of Super-Earth. Now it's turned into a whole new game mechanic that changes the pace of war, brings interesting strategic possibilities, and even shows what happens when a city or planet is lost. Or look at the incineration core variations of the Devastator. Those feel distinct and add flavor while reusing the same model with a little paintwork and with the weapon changes of a base clanker. This intelligent adaptation of existing elements, rather than just raw new creation, is key. It allows for expanding the game without overwhelming the development pipeline or driving players to boredom with endless reskins. But beyond the immediate challenges of content development cadence, there is a deeper layer to Helldivers 2 that holds immense potential for expansion: its universe. While the gameplay is strong, many lore-related questions remain unanswered. For instance, where are the CAF spaceships? What is an automaton exactly? How does dark energy work? How do Helldivers deploy? Do they simply fall from orbit and then super destroyers jump into the battlefield? Speaking of which, why doesn't the enemy try to destroy super destroyers when they're on the battlefield? And many more. I know Helldivers 2 is satirical and aims to be dark and absurd at the same time, and not all questions should be answered. However, answering some of the questions makes the world more believable and, in my opinion, creates opportunities for many new mission types. A lot of people enjoy evacuate high-value assets missions, so let's create a version of that, but call it, I don't know, destroy enemy spaceships, a thematic opposite to evacuate high-value assets. This would involve defending a high-powered laser or radar station, or a rocket silo launching 20 small anti-ship rockets, or something like that. Same maps, but a new mission type for players that like this kind of gameplay. Or we could have missions like Hold Offensive Beachhead, where CF deploys Pelicans into a shuttle bay, a reverse version of emergency evacuation, which will spawn waves of CF soldiers to help you defend something. That will show that CF exists outside of occasional appearances in the city and is in fact a fully armed force. And this is only a fraction of possible new mission types that I've seen in fan ideas, like the return of boss fights and escort missions from the first game. Or maybe we could have missions that are something like the Levolution events from the Battlefield series. I know we've already had something similar with Take Down Overship, but I mean something that will impact gameplay. Like Take Down Automaton Factory, where after its destruction a cloud of dust would emerge and cut down your vision in the same way as the blizzards on ice planets, but without the speed penalty for multiple minutes. This could affect major orders like, hey Helldivers, our CF Space Force got hit hard and we need to do X, Y, and Z to make them strong again, or soon the automatons will use this weakness and launch another attack wave. This would help people understand that 1. We have a space fleet. 2. That fleet is constantly fighting, which is why we don't see it. 3. A lot of things are happening outside of the Helldiver core, many of which we're not aware of. And 4. If we fail, we will face consequences. With that in mind, let's consider the possibility of strange but real weapons being added to the game. For now, let's take a look at mortar weaponry. Actual, real-life mortar weaponry. Starting with the KS-23K, a 23mm semi-automatic shotgun classified as handheld artillery, and ending with this monstrosity, an experimental 3-barrel bullpup rifle designed for burst fire. And that's just the common and not so common Soviet gun examples that I can show. If I go on about all the strange, rare, or just experimental weapon systems, it will take me about 3 hours. And if I start searching for all the strange weapons from around the world, this video will be at least 3 days long. And let's mention the potential for real-world science to ground the lore of Helldivers. I absolutely love that the lore already uses a lot of theories from real science. It makes the game, at least for me, far more interesting, constantly making me wonder what comes next. We already have incredible details like the Penrose process or chrome cobalt nickel alloy for the DSS, but why stop there? We could incorporate so many more real-world concepts into the game, like subcritical liquid, metamaterials, metallic glass, or even the ground effect. How can this be used? Need an example? Well, here. What if the Illuminate had a cannon that shot high-energy muon particles at relativistic speeds, which would pass through the armor of a spaceship and instantly decay or kill everyone inside with radiation or something? All of these small details would be interesting to engage with. And let's not forget the joke, if it is one, about how no one knows what dark energy is. It'll be amazing to see more of that in the future. These expanded lore elements and mission ideas could introduce exciting new gameplay scenarios, but their full potential can only be unlocked if the various in-game systems truly interact with each other. Helldivers 2 is packed with truly interesting game mechanics, but it's odd how many of them just don't interact with each other. It feels like there are many unique systems that are used once or twice and then simply forgotten. Take shootable body parts, for example. This is a fantastic concept. Unlike weak points that instantly kill enemies, these instead weaken them, yet only a handful of enemies genuinely engage with it. The Heavy Devastator's shootable arm, which essentially makes it turn into a weaker berserker, and the Alpha or Brute Commander's legs, causing its headless attack to become less dangerous if shot. I could also mention the hands or legs of the Hulk or the shield generator of the Harvester, but in both of those cases, it's easier to kill the enemy than to make it weaker. Then, there is stealth, but in the whole game, the only thing that's connected to it is the Scout's armor passive. There are stims, which primarily just restore HP and stamina. There are one-handed weapons, which are mostly relegated to carrying objectives or being paired with a shield. And yes, even walkers exist, but they essentially function as temporary power-ups without any meaningful interaction with other systems. And no, I'm not talking about team play. What I am talking about is that it's really rare to see different systems interacting with each other. Is that bad? Well, on its own, no. They are just game mechanics that exist and do their part. However, it harms game complexity and team play. In the first game, walkers allowed you, while inside, to still call stratagems and get healed by teammates and angel drones. Now, they're just a toy that merely makes your firepower greater without any interesting interaction with teammates or other game systems. Game interaction could be far more interesting if users had a ton of tools and mechanics to mix together and play with. For example, what if a booster made stim packs not only heal you, but also reduce recoil and flinching when taking hits, so you'd use it not only for healing or escape, but also as battle drugs. This would create an interaction between two different systems, adding more variety to gameplay. Or what if some sub-faction had an annoying enemy, but a good shot to an exposed body part could make it less of a problem to engage with? A decision to use stealth to complete one part of the mission, while someone else draws attention and triggers an alarm in another part of the map. That would be far more interesting. Yes, that sounds like a nightmare to test, and can cause a lot of headaches from a game development perspective. But on the other hand, it would make game progression more interesting. No longer would proper weapon choice be the best way of winning fights. Game knowledge and even planning would become a great part of the gameplay. Actually, the game already has some of this built in. For example, as it was stated before, did you know that enemies are attracted to stratagems? And if you throw an artillery barrage to a remote location, patrols will go in that direction. And that's cool and all, but does that knowledge help you in a fight? Can you name at least one situation when that will help? And by the way, I would like to make a good technical analysis of enemy AI and how various systems truly interact. Things like how stealth works or how stratagems specifically impact enemy behavior and numbers. However, currently that's not possible as we largely lack good technical info on these deeper interactions. I know some people have tried to explain patrol spawn mechanics or how AI reacts to bullets near them, but there is still not a lot of information available for proper technical analysis of these hidden systems. Having this information would greatly help the community be ready for new problems and would assist in finding issues within the game. This is where the game could truly shine. To illustrate the power of discovering these hidden interactions, let's briefly look at another game, Risk of Rain 2. While its items aren't exactly the systems we're discussing in Helldivers 2, the way they combine creates incredibly emergent and exciting gameplay. Imagine a new player discovering the powerful combo of gasoline and gas tank, turning every enemy kill into a chain reaction of explosions. Even less obvious and more powerful interactions exist, like how combining Soulbound Catalyst with ceremonial daggers and the Forgive Me Please item can create an unstoppable chain of explosions and daggers that clears the entire screen without you even firing a shot. These interactions aren't explicitly introduced by the game, but discovering them completely changes how you play. Where a new player would struggle without their favorite items, a good player would be able to find an item combo that would help them regardless of their current situation. It's this kind of emergent gameplay, born from hidden synergies, that Helldivers 2 could leverage so much more. Yet in all of my god only knows how many hours, these interesting sandbox mechanics in HD2 have been used to meaningful effect maybe 2 or 3 times. And that's sad because the game still has a ton of potential but isn't using it to its fullest.
Despite these existing and potential issues, there is a lot of possible new content, adding which could further improve the game. This is a small list of things I want to see or which I've heard others want. It's not something that needs to be added ASAP, just some concepts or ideas that will be good to have. Let's start with light armored vehicles. A lot of people have seen that one video, most likely a cheater, but shh, that's a detail we don't need to know. And that thing is amazing. Having heavy transport that can fight back is something that the game needs. The M532 HAV from the first game was an amazing team stratagem, and making it require at least 2 people to operate, driver and gunner, would make the co-op part of the game more relevant. Continuing with vehicles, the MC-109 hammer motorcycle, spread in groups of 2 for hit-and-run tactics, would be an interesting idea, and if it had a machine gun, it would be fun and offer a more interesting gameplay. Let's continue with good things from the first game. What about the return of weapons like the REC-6 Demolisher? In Helldivers 2, it could be a far better option than people think because you choose when it explodes. Not only would it be a good anti-tank weapon, but also a burst damage weapon and a useful tool for stealth completion. And let's remember that walkers in the first game were way more interesting. A literal walking tank with a flamethrower was one of the best stratagems in the game, but we still don't have it. Exos could be healed in the first game, which is now a missing feature, along with the stratagem launcher. I know that it's hard to make, but we can take inspiration from the community and introduce a recall feature. So long as you still have 1 or 2 walkers available, if you need, the walker will be taken from you and rearmed and repaired depending on how much it's been used. Also, why does the drum magazine only have 60 rounds? I know that the game uses its own calibers, but it looks like a 75 round mag. It would be perfect if we had a double-stacked magazine with 60 rounds and a drum one with 70 or 80 rounds. And let's continue to difficulty. While the player base is constantly improving their game knowledge, tactics and aim, we still don't have any insane difficulty levels to truly test these skills on. I know that taking difficulty level 15 from the first game and carrying it over to the sequel is not the best solution. But Arrowhead has already done a good job with difficulty-dependent enemy replacement in the first game, and if we slowly and carefully implement similar changes, we can have new, interesting challenges. What would be fun to have is additional rewards for team play. Small things like supply pack giving additional magazines to your teammates, or a stim given to a teammate causing a longer-lasting effect. It wouldn't push players towards team play that much, but it might motivate them enough to help each other more instead of keeping all the good stuff for themselves. Speaking of game progression, recent additions like weapon customization are a positive step, and it's clear Arrowhead is looking into expanding this area for a person that wants to play but has already finished all war bonds, for example. However, overall progression could still be significantly improved. Let's take a look at the pump-action shotgun. For example, after leveling it up, you can change the scope and, well, that's pretty much it. I'm not saying that's bad, but because we currently don't have a clear roadmap or understanding of what exactly Arrowhead is planning for future progression systems, there is a risk that players may develop expectations that differ wildly from what's to be delivered. This could lead to a situation similar to the DSS construction, where the lack of communication caused widespread disappointment despite the developers' good intentions. And let's take a look at war bonds. I don't want to further echo existing community ideas, but it would be fun to have references to real-world armies from different time periods. And no, I don't mean Europe in the 16th century, I mean something akin to Viper commandos that reference the Vietnam War. We could similarly draw inspiration from, for example, what the Soviets did in Afghanistan, or France's counter-terrorism efforts in Africa. That would be way more interesting to see. Not only USA in a sandbox or World War II Germans, but lesser known but interestingly looking uniforms and weapon systems. With that in mind, Arrowhead, please add at least something similar to a tactical vest. I need something with slots for magazines and armor plates. I'm begging you, just add this and my soul is yours. Yeah, let's continue. A few words on monetization. While this topic can be annoying for new players, I personally don't see any problem with it, and I hope that with the rework of the super credits drop, we can have a new way of monetization, like new ceremonial and not-so patterns for weapons and other cosmetic items. Let's have something like Black Ice from Rainbow Six Siege. Although it might be a bit out of place for HD2, the whole concept of a simple and beautiful paid skin for a weapon would be a good addition to the Superstore. And let's keep in mind that no one will judge something that needs to be paid super credits for if some other content can be accessed by just playing the game. Content such as the possible return of capes like the Bug Ecologist, Cyber Peacekeeper, and Illuminate Negotiator, which would become accessible after killing a hell of a lot of enemies, for example. And on the topic of gameplay, why do side objectives impact the main mission so insignificantly? Fixing that for mission level 7 or higher could prove to be a good new addition. Let me explain. Take Automaton Air Defense, for example. On lower difficulties, side objectives would work the same way as always, but on the difficulties that count as hard, it would affect how long it takes for Eagles to drop their payload, and perhaps their recharge time. This way, players would have to face the fact that AA batteries exist, and would be motivated to deal with them not just for XP or requisition slips, but to also make the mission easier. And the same thing could be done to other side objectives, like Shrieker Nests deploying endless patrols in the sky, or Stratagem Jammers jamming your stratagem codes while still allowing you to call them, and many more. Actually, the mission types themselves aren't very distinct. Even given a variety of planets or the occasional sub-faction appearing there, that only addresses half the problem. The other half is that there are barely any genuine surprises during missions. Recall Deep Rock Galactic, where all of a sudden a bulk detonator can appear and shake things up quite a lot. There isn't a similar situation in Helldivers 2. Not even when 3 factory striders drop on your head during extraction, which is a predictable event that's tied to difficulty and hence has no element of surprise. What's needed is truly random events, like a side objective appearing out of nowhere, or a boss enemy starting to hunt you, forcing you to either somehow slow it down and speedrun the rest of the mission, or to take it out entirely. That was certainly something. Even with everything I've said here, it's still just the tip of the iceberg. From weapons and stratagems to the deeper problems concerning casual and core audiences, warbond cost, and much more, I simply don't have the will or free time to provide a longer explanation. This game is good, but it can be improved, and I hope some elements from this video will be implemented. This isn't about complaining, it's about passion. It's about a game we love and want to see grow into the absolute super version of itself.